All right, we're recording. Welcome, everybody. So I, in the, how would I say this? In the normal way that we speak of these things, I would say that I woke up irritable this morning, which is interesting. I find it interesting. And the reason I mention it is because I find it interesting that I have an idea of what that experience is. Isn't that interesting? That if you look to see what kind of mood did you wake up in, or what kind of mood are you in presently? So there's some experience, and then there's an idea about what the experience is. And I find this very interesting because I have no idea what the meaning of this experience is. I don't know what it is. I really don't. But the conditioned mind is very quick to provide a name, history, significance, the implications of the whole story about the experience, which incidentally has never occurred before. Isn't that true? I mean, this experience has never occurred before. Can you see that? You've never, ever, 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 ever had this experience. You never will have this experience. You can't even have it now, but it's happening now. But this has never ever happened. But the conditioned mind will tell you that it knows all about it. Will say, oh, I'm in a bad mood. I'm irritable. So what is the reason I mention this is because I see how for a good portion of my life, I say good portion, a bad portion of my life, not a very pleasant portion, but for a large percentage of my life, whenever I had a conditioned opinion about what this is, what this experience is, what this mood is, what this sensation is, what this whatever is, whenever I've had in the past some idea about what this is, I just believed it. And then I sought to try and do something about that if I thought that something needed to be done about it. So if I woke up and my mind said, oh, I'm in a bad mood. Oh, I'm so irritable. Then there's a whole story with that quickly gets unpacked. Oh, that's bad. And that's going to mean all kinds of bad things. Oh, I'm not going to be productive. I want to be productive, but when I'm in a bad mood, I'm not productive. So that's going to be bad. Oh no. Then things will go badly for me. I won't be as successful and happy as I want to be. So straight away, you see, I wake up, there's this mood, so-called, the opinion about it, the story unfolds, and for most of my life, I then set about going to war with that, trying to fix it, trying to do something about it, trying to damage control, something, anything. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? How am I going to fix this? And it's, you know, it's like, it could be 5:30 a.m. You know, this is how the day begins. And then it goes, you know, maybe at some point in the day. I mean, on a good day, that wouldn't be the case, right? On a good day, I would wake up and I'd have a mood that my conditioned opinion about that would be, oh, this is good. Oh, I'm motivated. Oh, I'm happy. Oh, I'm enthusiastic. I'm excited, passionate. Today's going to be a good day. So then I set about trying to figure out how is it that I can produce the good mood? How is it that I can have only the good mood so that way I won't have to be at war? So I can be carried on that wave of the good mood. But never did I see until I did. But I mean, it took a long time of a great deal of suffering and misery. And I mean, it got to a point where it didn't matter if it was a good mood or a bad mood because I knew it would change. So then it was just misery because I knew that I didn't have the ability to control what I thought I needed to control in order to be okay. So I was a victim of my moods, a victim of but not even of the mood. See, it's a victim of the story of the experience. There's some experience occurring and then there's the story about it. And I was a victim of the story because I believed that the story was primary reality. And I mention all of this just because it's so persistent. This function is so persistent. And the tendency to get the tendency to mistake that functioning for primary reality seems to be so pervasive among humans that most of us don't ever know that it's even happening. It's an invisible disease. We don't even know. We so don't even know that even when somebody points it out, we usually don't even understand it. You usually think somebody talking like this is crazy. Or you say, okay, not crazy. We can spin it in a more positive way. So, well, that somebody who speaks like that, they've discovered something really, really wonderful. But then we say, but that's only for a few. That's only for a few select people who lucked into it. You know, it was just some special circumstance. It was their birth. It was where they were. They just got struck by lightning. That's all. You know, I mean, it just doesn't happen to most people. Not going to happen to me. I'll just go about my life trying to organize my moods. And you know, so I woke up this morning and straight away, these sensations, these experiences that my conditioned mind says, oh, this is irritation. This is bad. This is no good. Don't like this. So I got to see it. I got to see this happening, which is why I'm talking about it. Because it occurs to me that um, that it's a completely useless war. It's a completely useless waste of energy to fight with, to struggle with, to be victim to your moods, your sensations. And it's actually a misunderstanding. So this is what I want to look at. So right now, we're all having some experience, right? And you have opinions about your experience. And just notice that the opinions about the experience are not the experience. The experience is something that's not thought. I mean, thought can be included in experience, but the experience on the whole is not exclusively thought. The majority of experience is not thought. So if we take a look at what our actual experience is, then this becomes very curious and interesting. So can you see how when, well, let me see. I think, as usual, not a lot of people have their cameras on, but for those of you who have your cameras on, if you wouldn't mind, let me just see, just so I know I'm talking to the right audience. Okay, can you just, if you uh, if you are aware that you struggle from time to time with your stories about your moods or your experience, can you just raise your hand so I can see? Okay, I've got 1, 2. Okay, okay. So thank you. Okay, so most everybody is saying yes. Okay, so that's a relief. I'm talking to the right crowd. Okay, you never know, because sometimes it's just me, but it's usually turns out to be everybody, because it's a common thing. So there's the experience that's occurring, and then there's the story about the experience, and the story about the experience could be good, it could be bad, but it's about, it's not even about, but it pretends to be about. It pretends to be about the experience. It's somewhat about the experience. It's a reaction to, it's triggered by the experience. So here's what I want to point out, is that there's a radically different way to relate to experience than the way that we've been taught. The way that we've been taught, and this still is, it is, I have to admit, it continues to be mind-boggling to me that the overwhelming majority of humanity doesn't know this. When we're talking about our own most intimate experience. Isn't that fascinating? That the most intimate thing for all of us, vastly more intimate than any of the other things that people study. I mean, if you think about, what do people study? They study science, mathematics, what else do they study these days? That's pretty much it these days, but music, history, story, painting, etc. They study these things, but vastly more intimate than any of that. What's totally inescapable is our own direct experience. And yet, where are the schools for this? Who is studying this? Most people, they look at it and they're like, yeah, whatever. to them, turning on the news and finding out what's happening in world politics is more important than taking a look at their own experience. And you look at even in the field of supposedly helping people with their struggles with their own experience, who's looking at the actual experience? Isn't that fascinating? It's like almost nobody looks at the actual experience. People look at theories. They refer to other people's theories, theories about theories, papers on theories. They look at, okay, well, what if we use this substance? What does that have an effect on that we can measure? It's all interesting, maybe, but the thing that's overlooked is let's look at our actual direct experience. And nobody's doing this, hardly. Very, very, very few people. And it's still, like I said, it's mind-boggling to me. So what I actually see when I look out in the world is I see that the majority of people are almost entirely entranced by story. Almost entirely entranced by story. And don't even know that that's not the totality of what is. And they're dissatisfied with that. They're unhappy with that. I mean, when I look out in the world, it sure does seem that there's an awful lot of unhappiness, an awful lot of distress, an awful lot of confusion, an awful lot of warfare. And so what I'm proposing is that we actually can, within our own experience presently, we can discover something radically different. That is very powerfully liberating, because it reveals how it is that we have been imprisoned. So the imprisonment is in the entrancement. They're the same thing. We are spellbound. And so we imagine, because we're spellbound, we imagine that we have all of these problems that we need to go to war with. Moods being one of them. Probably one of the most significant things that we have to go to war with. But that's only because we're spellbound. And we don't realize that that's all, it's smoke and mirrors. It really is smoke and mirrors. So when I wake up and this experience is here and the conditioned mind brings forth its story, it's a very powerful opportunity. Because the way in which the spell continues to bind us, there's a mechanism for it. It has to do with frequency. Like literally, it has to do with frequency. It's the speed at which it's a frequency thing. Be considered, what is frequency? I mean, if you were to graph out a frequency, like if you have a sine wave, I mean, mathematically, a frequency is how often that, if you have an axis, how often does it intersect with that? So the more often it does, the higher the frequency. So it's a frequency thing. There's a certain frequency that is required, like energetically, to maintain the binding of the spell. And we think that we are victims of that, because we perceive ourselves, this is the way that the spell binds, is that because a spell, okay, what is a spell? A spell is just a frequency, but there's some way in which the spell binds. So the frequency binds because we wrongly imagine that we are that. So then we're trying to get out, but we don't see any way out, because no matter what we do, we're in that, we seem to be locked into that frequency. We say, oh, I don't want to be in a bad mood, right? So I wake up, oh, I'm in a bad mood. Oh, I don't want to be in a bad mood. Well, now what does I don't want to be in a bad mood do? It pretends like it's motivated to escape. It pretends like it's leading to a solution. But in fact, what does it do? It just reinforces the same thing. It's just happening in the same frequency. Can you see this? It's happening in the same frequency. It is part of the same frequency. It's part of the same spell. So we say right straight away, I don't want to be in a bad mood. But what is that? It's a reaction to the perceived bad mood. So where are we? We're in the same frequency. It's all based upon the assumption that there's a bad mood and everything that goes along with that. So all we can hope for then is to react. There's no possibility then of actually escaping. We have to see, it's like the Chinese finger trap. If you know the thing, it's the woven thing. You stick your fingers in the two ends, and then when you pull them out, they don't pull out because it gets tighter on the fingers. It's like that. The harder you pull, the tighter it gets. This is how the spell binding works. There's a frequency. The frequency is in the story, and the story, when we are entranced by it, no matter, we come up with what we think are all these various creative escape plans, all of which are they are the strands in the weave that keep us locked. It binds us to the spell. All of our effort to undo it bind us to it. So if I wake up and I say, oh, I'm in a bad mood, I don't want to be in a bad mood, I'm assured 100% that everything that I do based upon that is only going to keep me bound in the same frequency. So this seems like really, really bad news, but all we have to do is look. And in order to really look, we actually have to shift frequency. So we are literally changing the vibration. I know, like, frequency and vibration, these are like ultra woo terms. I understand that. But I believe I'm using them in a fairly accurate way. They're not just woo terms that I'm pulling out. There really is a vibration, a frequency. And when we're entrained to that, then we cease to recognize that there's anything outside of that. We think that the entire reality of all that is can be understood through this frequency. And we fail to recognize that it is only a frequency out of infinitely many. So to shift the frequency, I often talk about slowing down. I suppose you could speed up. That's probably a possibility too. I find slowing down to be easier. So I prefer slowing down. But it really is literally about changing the speed, changing the frequency. So there are a variety of ways, I suppose, that one could do this. I don't know all of them. I don't even know that many of them. I know a few, and but all of them work in the same. They have the same goal, which is a shift in frequency, slowing down. So, and all of them, I think, come down to its various ways of observing. Because when we observe, okay, I'm trying to describe something. So let me see if I can do this well. Okay. So there are universes in every particle. So you can, and thus far, and I'm not a master at this, but from my experimentation thus far, I haven't found an end to this. It's maybe infinite, but it's possible to shift your perception so that I'll come back to your question in just a moment. So, okay, so you could imagine you have we all have these touch screens. I'm doing this here because it's my phone. We have these touch screens, right? And so you know that you can like, put your fingers on a point and expand things sometimes on some of these screens, right? Or shrink them down. You can expand them and shrink them. Okay. So it's kind of like that. You can do this with within yourself. You don't need a device for this. But it's the same kind of thing where you can expand it. And what seemed to be just a speck can open up and reveal this vast expanse of experience, perception, knowledge. It's there all the time. But when we're moving so quickly, when we're moving in a particular frequency, we don't see it. We're moving too quickly. So the human nervous system, you can just notice this, okay? If you start spinning around really fast, you're probably going to get dizzy. Why is that? Isn't that an interesting thing? Why would you get dizzy if you spin around really fast? The answer is because you're moving too quickly for your nervous system, given its present conditioning, to fully process all of the data. So, I mean, there's a trick for that, right? If you, like dancers learn this, if you want to spin around a bunch of times and not vomit, then you look at a point, and then you you keep your gaze on that point as much as possible as you're turning. So you turn the head last, so that your nervous system can have something that it can process to know what's what, to orient itself. It's the same reason, by the way, people get car sick, is there's a mismatch in the nervous system is perceiving, for example, if you're trying to read, if you're in a car, not driving, hopefully, but if you're trying to read as somebody else is driving, many people become car sick. Why is that? It's because the nervous system is perceiving motion at the same time as it's perceiving relative stillness, and it can't, there's some dissonance. So the nervous system is like, I don't know. I think probably the best thing to do right now is just stop. What's going to stop me? Well, if I feel nauseous, I'm going to stop. Except that if you're in the car, you're not going to stop. But there's too much information. The nervous system doesn't know how to process that. So in order to, so if we're feeling, okay, so here's the thing, is when we're getting these signals of something that gets our attention, doesn't matter if it gets our attention in a good way or a bad way, doesn't matter, it's just getting our attention. So if something is getting our attention, in my experience, it's a call to slow down, or it's a call to shift frequency. And when we do that, what happens is that it opens up. It opens up is one way of saying it. We could say just we slow down and therefore are able to perceive what's already here. Either way, it doesn't matter. I mean, my experience of it, my story about it, my perception of it is colored through the human organism, which perceives itself to be a thing here. So my tendency is to interpret it as something is opening up or expanding, but I'm slowing down. It's the same thing. So when this happens, then all of a sudden there's literally a shift in the nervous system. Literally, I'm using the word in the truthful way. There actually is a change, and I'm without having actually tested this, because I don't have the equipment to do so, but I'm as certain as I can be without having actually tested it that this is easily detectable. I'm almost certain that this shift, I'm almost certain that I could demonstrate this to you if I was hooked up to some things that measured brain waves and so forth. I am 99.99999% positive that I could demonstrate to you that I can shift the frequency at which the nervous system is operating. The brain waves will be different, and it'll be measurable. So I'm talking about frequency. That's what frequency is, right? The shift in brain waves is a shift in frequency, literally. That's why I'm saying literally. Okay. So when this occurs, we break the spell. We're not bound by that spell. And suddenly the universe opens up, or we pass through a portal, and we suddenly, even though on the one hand everything seems the same, everything seems different because we've passed through a portal. And now all of a sudden we're seeing reality as it is. So when we see reality as it is, we see what's actually happening. What's actually happening? Well, energy. What else can we say about it? So all of the reactivity that generates all of the misery all the reactivity that generates the misery is totally optional. So I see there are a couple of questions there. So let me take a look. And I'm sorry that my signal is not very good. It is what it is. I thought it was going to be better. So it says, just to keep using the term frequency, we often also talk about raising the vibration out of the spellbound speed. Just wondering whether that's faster or slower, or if it matters. Yeah, I actually would say I don't know, and I know I'm frozen. The screen's frozen when I'm on this screen, so don't freak out anybody. I would say that when I would, okay, let me see if I can speak intelligently about this. Probably not, but I'll do my best. What I've noticed is that I often I'm going to go back to the other screen so I can see you. I often have an idea about something that turns out to be opposite to what it is when I'm directly perceiving. So I often think, for example, something is up, and in fact, it turns out to be down. And so this question about faster, slower, I would say, I don't know. When I say slowing down, that's my experience of it. It's entirely possible it's actually speeding up. I'm not. I don't have any problem admitting that I don't have enough clarity at this point in my life to be able to tell you for sure. There are probably people who do have much greater clarity who are able to perceive that and describe it better than I can. Yeah. Okay. So the comment is that slowing down heads in the direction of stillness. And again, see, what I can say with a fair amount of confidence, okay, it's one of those things that it's just a high level of confidence because I've perceived this. I can perceive this clearly enough that I'm pretty sure about this. It's all the same thing. So slowing down and speeding up, they meet in the same whatever we want to call that. You can call it stillness. But it's stillness, but it's also this stillness is still in the sense that it's not there's no movement occurring in stillness, but yeah, that intensity, you can call it intensity. The intensity is the potential, right? So the stillness holds all the potential. I mean, stillness is not committed to any polarity. Can you see that? Stillness doesn't have, it's undifferentiated. But the potential is there. We know the potential is there because that's what we're perceiving all the time. I mean, in a sense, that's all that we're perceiving is potential. It's like in imagination. This is all playing out in imagination. So the question is, does tension lock up potential? That's a good question. Does tension lock up potential? Gosh, I don't know the answer to that question, but what I can say is that tension makes it miserable. So, I'm, so there's a lot of people who are purists. They only want. I'm kind of a purist. I'll have to admit it at heart, but I'm also a pragmatist. I just don't like suffering, and so whenever I find something that genuinely seems to be useful in terms of not suffering, I'm all for that, whether it's pure or not. So I would say that does tension lock up potential? I mean, I guess what I would say about it is that, yeah, in a sense, it does. Yeah, it locks us. It locks us up from actually enjoying the potential, because then we're so concerned about what might happen. I mean, tension. Interesting thing about tension is that okay, if you have no tension, none, not any tension whatsoever, you have no experience happening. And you see that if there's nothing, if there's no tension, then there's no experience. And so the thing about tension is that it gives this sense that it's about something, whereas in fact it is only the tension. I don't know how. Let me see if I can explain this well. So I can experience tension, and then I have this idea that says, yes, we put stories on it. So the idea is, oh no, this is a bad mood. And then I can become consumed with, what do I do about the bad mood? So then I'm at war with the bad mood. All my attention is on this story. Am I winning? Am I losing? How am I doing in the battle against the bad mood? And what I'm overlooking is that all along, this so-called bad mood is, in fact, nothing but tension. That's all it is. I mean, you think about what's the worst thing that's going to happen, really? Like, let's play it out. What's the very, very worst thing that's going to happen? Okay. I mean, to you, the worst thing, yeah, crucifixion. There you go. I mean, that's basically what I was going to say. It's torture, right? Torture. Torture is the worst case scenario. Is there anything worse than torture? I mean, death is not worse than torture. Torture is the worst thing. I mean, who thinks about these things except for me? Okay, but I'm pretty sure torture is the worst thing because people are so afraid of death. But death isn't so bad, I don't think. I mean, I don't know because I'm not dead, but I think as far as we understand death, I don't think death is the thing that we should be concerned about. I think torture is the thing that we should be so concerned about. Because, like I've had some pretty intense experiences in life. I'm sure many of you have had some pretty intense experiences that you could say were borderline torture, if not straight up torture, where you just like, you don't know, you don't have control, you don't know what this is, you don't know what's going to happen, and you're just terrified, pretty much unceasingly terrified. Isn't that what torture is? I mean, you can say it's pain, but pain, what is pain? I mean, uh, what was Saint Teresa of Avila? I think she was the one who, well, I mean, one of many, but she had the exhibited the stigmata. I think like pretty much every day at 4 o'clock or something like that. She had the stigmata, and she would reportedly be. I mean, you talk about crucifixion. That's, I mean, literally, like she was being crucified every day. Uh, but apparently, she didn't find it so bad. So then, here's the interesting thing: is what actually makes something torture? I mean, there are, yeah, exactly. Somebody wrote stories, but there are handbooks on how to torture people. Yeah, it's funny. Except it's not funny. It's funny and not funny. But handbooks on how to torture people. So they like it came out what was that, in Afghanistan? Was it in Afghanistan or was it in Iraq, where they the whole waterboarding thing, and they say, okay, well, waterboarding supposedly everybody agrees that that's torture and you're not supposed to do that, but then they were doing it. So they know, people have, I talked earlier about the things that people dedicate their lives to studying. Some people dedicate their lives to studying how to torture. And so there are people who are very knowledgeable about how to torture. And, well, like the crucifixion was, I think, intended to be a form of torture. If we're to believe that the historical accounts of Roman practices of crucifixion are true, it was designed to be a form of torture. It wasn't a quick death. That's right. So, but then here, so when somebody is being basically crucified every day, exhibiting the stigmata and writhing and the whole thing, apparently, uh, but this person doesn't perceive it as torture. What do we make of that? And this is where we can say, oh, well, you know, it's only for reserved for these special people. I don't exhibit the stigmata, so this doesn't apply to me. It's just for this special people who were blessed somehow. Blessed to have the stigmata. So the question then is, what, you know, if somebody can find pleasure in crucifixion, ecstasy in crucifixion, if we can experience, if somebody can experience ecstasy in crucifixion, then what's possible for us? And what I'm saying is that when you wake up or at any point you find yourself in a mood, then what you got to see what you do. Because what I'm proposing is that just like the Chinese finger thing, okay, nobody's doing that to you. If that becomes a distressing thing, okay, so probably not terribly distressing to most of us, but imagine for a moment, if you can remember maybe the first time you ever did that, if you've ever had that experience, the first time you ever did that, or if you ever got your head, like when I was a kid, my grandma had a metal railing. She had some concrete stairs going up to her. She lived in a trailer home. She had these concrete stairs that went up. It had a metal railing, and they were the perfect width that I was able to get my head through. But then I didn't know how to get my head back out. It's very this thing happens to our goats sometimes. They've got horns, and they can get their head into the feeder, but then they don't know how to get their head out of the feeder. So when we find ourselves in these situations, what happens? If you can remember having done these kinds of things at some point in your life, where you felt suddenly trapped, what happens? What's the first thing that we do? Do we slow down? Most people don't. Goats don't. That's right. Pull like hell. So with kids, whenever kids get themselves into some kind of trouble, the worst thing is what the kid is doing. Like, you got to calm down. You got to stop this. You got to stop doing what you're doing. I can help you, but you need to stop. You're making things worse. And we have to see that this is what we're doing all the time. So there's this mood, and the mood is like, oh shit, I just stuck my head through the railing and now I don't know how to get it out. So when this is happening, we have to notice, what do I do? Well, normally I pull like hell. I react. I freak out. That's right. So we start to notice that there are all kinds of, we have these compulsions. Now these compulsions exist. They're like, you have to understand that the nervous system is the human nervous system in particular, and I've said this before, I think that uh, you can just see that this is true. Humans, if you observe other animals and then you observe humans, you'll see that humans have a tremendous capacity uh, for learning that throughout their entire lives that is significantly more than other species. So other species can learn, of course, but the capacity of for humans to learn is very, very large. And you look at humans, we're not, we come into the world helpless. We know nothing. We're basically useless for a long, 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 long time. And then we have to learn everything. We have to learn how to walk. We have to learn how to eat. We have to learn how to do everything. And we learn our entire culture. We're programmed with the culture. The language is a programming tool. I mean, talk about frequency. Literally, the language is literally frequency. That's what language is. It sounds, and it literally conditions the nervous system. So we become spellbound to all of these different spells, all of these different frequencies. No, technically, other animals don't do the same. So humans are very malleable. That's my point. Extremely malleable. I mean, you look at, and I've said this kind of thing before too, but it's really, I think, significant. You look at how different humans can be from one another, and why is that? I mean, and I'm not talking about just one-off, but I mean, you can have cultures that are very different from other cultures. And why is that? It's because of the malleability of or the plasticity of the human nervous system. So we can be molded in many, many, many ways. And we mistake the conditioning or the programming to be who and what we are. But what we fail to recognize is when the conditioning is entirely a superficial layer. It is just a layer of functioning. And if it's not particularly efficient or functional, if it doesn't bring joy and satisfaction, then we don't need to fight with it. Because fighting with it, again, only maintains the same frequency. It's only operating within the same frequency. So in order to really make changes, we want to go to a lower level. I usually don't, I need to come up with some nice metaphors because I don't really like using technology metaphors for comparing to humans, but I think it's the best thing I've got right at the moment. So I'll just use the metaphor. So if you have a computer that has you've got this computer and it's got all kinds of games on it and all kinds of ads that pop up and all kinds. It's just a mess. Nobody wants to use this thing. It's slow, it's buggy, it's got all kinds of things on it that you don't want to use, things you don't want to be dealing with. What are you going to do? You can go through and one at a time. You're going to like try to, just because the games are there, you're going to try to master them. Like, well, I don't really like, what is that, Minecraft? that the one that Minecraft? Tic-tac-toe. I'm not into tic-tac-toe, but here it is. Tetris. Like, okay, not my favorite, but it's on the computer, so I guess I'll play it until I win. So life just becomes about just winning at Tetris because that's the game that's installed. So if you're dissatisfied with that, if you feel like on some level you're just like, why am I doing this? Every day I get up and I play Tetris. I don't like playing Tetris. I don't know what the point of it is. I don't know why I'm doing this. It's not fulfilling, but it's here every day. Every morning I wake up and here's Tetris. So I play. If you're not happy with that, then what are you going to do? I would recommend go to a lower level, reformat the computer. Recognize that if you don't want Tetris, stop playing Tetris. Uninstall it. So what's happening is there's signals that occur. Signal is just like, it's like on my computer, I installed this thing because I thought maybe I had some kind of, I don't know, computer virus or something that was slowing things down. So I install a program to scan for these kinds of things. And now, because I haven't uninstalled it, it's every hour or so it pops up a thing saying, install the new version. No, I don't want to install the new version. So at this point, it hasn't annoyed me enough that I've actually uninstalled it. I just keep clicking the thing to dismiss the dialog. Eventually, it's going to annoy me enough I'm going to uninstall it. But it's just there. It's a reminder, right? It's useful. It's like, hey, remember, you got this thing installed on your computer. We've got a new version. Do you want the new version? And then I can say, actually, yes, I do want the new version. I find this very useful. This is a very functional thing. I'm happy to have it. I want the latest, greatest. Or I might say, actually, thanks for reminding me. I don't want this on my computer at all. I'll just uninstall it now. And since it keeps reminding me, it's like, I'm not forgetting about it. So it's useful. I'm happy for the reminder. And so in the same way, when I wake up and my mind says, oh, I'm in a bad mood. It's like the dialogue popping up saying, hey, we got a new version. You want to install it? Wait a second. No. Thanks for reminding me. Actually, I think I'll just delete this one. But in order to do that, you see, action is required. Oh, yeah. The question is, have I been able to delete that program? I'll tell you more about that momentarily. So but it's like every time that happens, it's like the dialogue popping up on my computer. So it's a helpful reminder. It's just like, this is still installed. Do you want it? Now, every time that I click to dismiss the dialogue, I am by default saying, yeah, I want it. I don't want to take action to upgrade it, but I still want it. I don't want to delete it. I don't want to go through that. So I can pretend like that's not what's happening, but that's actually what's happening. Isn't that true? It's like if I wake up and I'm in a bad mood, then I'm saying anything that I do other than uninstalling that, I'm giving my implicit permission. It's not even implicit, it's explicit actually, because I'm actually doing something, saying, yes, I would like to keep that. But when I'm spellbound, what do? I don't see that that's what I'm doing. I get it reversed. I think that the opposite is happening. I think that I'm working to get rid of it. I think I'm struggling against it. I think I'm fighting against it. I'm like, oh no, there's that bad mood. Well, I'm going to show it who's boss. I'm not going to let it get me down. Screw you, mood. Look, I'll just force myself to feel good. There we go. That's working. But it's just keeping me locked in the same frequency. So then the question that was asked is, how to uninstall? Well, glad you asked. Okay, if you want to uninstall, you have to go to a lower level. Okay, so it's like the thing about these is that you have to actually understand what's happening. You actually have to be watching. You have to be paying attention to see what's actually happening. So, because it is a technology, okay? The human nervous system is a technology, not a technology of human invention, but it is a technology. And so you have to understand how it works. It works, I mean, there is a way in which it works, and you can actually observe that. So you can see that what are the components of this? If we really just start to observe our experience, okay, let's break it down. So we say, oh, I'm in a bad mood. All right. So what are the components of this? Let's really observe. Take a look at your own experience. Whatever your present mood is, just notice what that is. It could be good, bad, bored, neutral, I don't know, I don't care, whatever, just observe whatever it is. And then notice, what are the parts of this? So obviously there's a thought, right? I mean, you couldn't translate it into any kind of word if there's not a thought. So there's a thought. But in order for that thought to have any meaning or significance to you, you have to also be referring to some supposedly past experience, don't you? I mean, if you don't think that you've ever experienced this before, then you're not going to waste your time thinking that you know anything about it. If you know that you've never experienced this before and you have no real frame of reference, why would you bother looking to any thought? Why would you bother looking to any memory? You wouldn't. Instead, you would be using a different function of the nervous system. You see, you would be using the presence mode of the function of the nervous system. Presence meaning you don't know, and therefore you're going to be absolutely attentive to everything that you can be attentive to about this experience. But that's not what's usually happening. So we're looking at what the normal mode in which we do this, the habitual mode is. So we see there's the thought, and then there's a reference to the past. Now, you might not be consciously doing that, of course. I'm not proposing that you're doing that consciously. Of course not. Because consciousness, I'm talking about, I don't know when you say slowing down before, I'm talking about that now. Yeah. So we're just slowing down now to observe. So you can observe that there's the thought, and then there's referencing the past. When you think that you've had similar kinds of experiences, and you're looking to see, is this good or bad? What happened in the past? Did I like it in the past or not? Did it work out well in the past or not? Did it get me what I wanted in the past or not? And if you say, well, I don't like this mood, how do you know you don't like the mood? It has to be because of something from the past. Yes, a story. And that's right. Yes. Any named thing has to have been seen before, except that it was never seen before. So, but that's right. Yes. In order to have a name for it, it has to be something that you think you've seen before. Because if you say, I know what this experience is a bad mood, the only way you could know that, I mean, first of all, you can't know that. The only way you could actually think you know that is because you think that you've experienced what you call a bad mood in the past, and you think this is the same thing, or similar enough that you can call it the same thing. So there's the thought, there's a reference to the past. What else? It has to be sensation, doesn't there? Because if there's no sensation, what are we even talking about? How could you have, a mood is a feeling. Feeling involves sensation. If there's no sensation, there's no feeling. So there has to be the actual sensation. So then you can notice the sensation, whatever sensation. So you'll have, but you just notice the sensation and then notice what happens. Don't you straight away turn to more thought to tell you what the sensation is? So then thought will tell you any variety of things. One thing that it often will say is, I don't even know what this is. Yes. So the sensations, you can see here again, what happens is if we're operating at too fast of a speed, then we're operating at this level of thinking, which means we go right back to, okay, thought, what is this? And thought will say, well, the sensation is in the knee. The sensation has to do with that thing that happened. The sensation is bad. The sensation is whatever. It's going to tell you some story. You might not be aware of all of the details of it, but there's some story. So again, slow down and just observe the direct experience of sensation. And you can do this any number of ways. I mean, one simple way is just be curious about the sensation, whatever the sensation is. It honestly does not matter. So don't think that you have to find the right sensation. I mean, that's just more games. But just notice whatever sensation you're aware of, any sensation, doesn't matter. And just notice the sensation. And don't just, by the way, because sometimes people play this weird game where they say, oh, I don't experience any sensation. No, not true. I'm talking about any sensation. If you notice the, like the urge to blink, the urge to swallow, those are sensations. They're happening all the time. Any sensation, just observe it and notice that you're able to just directly perceive the sensation. And that a little trick you can play is you can then, because the mind, the conditioned mind, wants to try to box in something. It wants to put parameters around it. So when I talk about the sensation, it's okay, okay, what is the sensation? Okay, it's that sensation there. And then it gives you a story about it. And it happens so quickly, you probably don't even notice it. You just accept that's the truth. But what I'm saying is slow it down even more. Notice that what you think of as the sensation that has some parameters around it be really curious about this and notice, and this is the trick. Can you find the boundaries of it in your direct experience? It's just a trick. It's not, don't make it more than it is, but just, it's a trick just to see, okay, can I find the boundaries of it? Because I think it's a thing. If I'm talking about it like it's a thing, the sensation, but you have to actually look, can you find the boundaries of it? And of course you can't. And to answer that question, is it an object? No, of course it's not an object. But it's not, no, it's not an object. It's not an object in any sense. For any purpose, it's not an object. It's not an object at all. But you can't help but imagine that it's an object. And so that's all we're doing is we're meeting ourselves where we are. And then we're leading ourselves to a different frequency. That's why I say it's a gateway. It's a portal. We're shifting to a different frequency. We start it's like, like in the Matrix. You ever saw the movies, the Matrix movies? Like they're inside the Matrix. How is somebody going to reach them? In the Matrix. Right? So we have to go into the Matrix, and then we shift the frequency. So it's we meet ourselves where we are, which is spellbound. So it's like, the kid who's got his head stuck in the railing. You probably come around to the front where he can see you, and you help to calm him down. Okay, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna sort this out. I know you're scared, but it's gonna be okay. We're gonna figure this out. You got your head in there, we can get your head out. I'm here to help you. So now that you know I'm here, now that you know that I'm here to help you, now that you maybe have some confidence that this is going to be better soon, maybe you can calm down a little bit and we can do this cooperatively. So that's what we're doing. We're coming in at the level where we are at that frequency. And we're saying, okay, so can we just, what can we all agree on? What can we see? What can we see of our own experience? Can we see that there are thoughts? Can we see that there's references to the past? Can we see that there's sensation? Can we now see the sensation? You see how we're slowing down. It's subtler. So then we see, okay, can I see the sensation? Of course, the mind's going to say, oh, it's like, oh yeah, I can see a sensation, which to it is a thing. And then we say, okay, let's take a look at that now. What are the boundaries of that? Look in your own direct experience. What are the boundaries of this sensation? Can you find them? Where does it end? Look as far to the left as you can. Can you find the end of this sensation? Mentally, there's an idea, right? But that's functioning at that frequency that we're not really interested in for this purpose. We're interested in actually directly looking. So the idea is, well, it must have an end because it's a thing. It's a sensation. It's not always here, and it seems to be there. And so it's got to have boundaries, and we just leave it at that. The idea says it's in my knee, then it's in my knee. And I know that my knee has this location and these boundaries, and therefore I know that there's a boundary, but it's all inferred. So instead, we're going to take a look. Notice this actual sensation. Notice in your direct perception, what are the boundaries of it? Can you find boundaries to the direct perception of the sensation? Is there anybody here who can find boundaries in your direct perception? If you can, let me know. It feels like a boundary. Okay, good. So this is great. I'm happy that you bring this up because it feels like a boundary. This is where many of us get hung up. So I'm very, very happy that you mentioned that. Thank you. Because this is perhaps the most common, I don't know what to call it, justification or excuse that I hear and that I recognize in myself. Okay, so I think it's a very common thing. It feels like. So let's look at that because it's something that most of us probably run up against is, well, it feels like it. So let's explore this in the same way. So it feels like a boundary. And yes, you say you're maybe stuck in story mode, and that's exactly right. But let's look at it so we can really, this will get clear. So it feels like a boundary, and then you need to look, how does it feel like a boundary? What does a dense and solid? Great. So the experience presently has a quality that you associate with density and solidity. How do you know that density and solidity mean that there's a boundary? Are you able to actually directly perceive the boundary, or are you merely inferring it? It feels heavy. Great. So it has a dense, heavy quality. Right. Great. Like a boulder on the head. So it has these qualities, and or so you think. But can you see how all of these qualities are not proof of something beyond themselves? So heaviness, or I should say the perception of heaviness, or the idea of heaviness, is only proof of the existence of the perception of heaviness. It's not proof of a boundary. So what would prove a boundary is if you could actually directly, right, you say you don't feel it on your feet, you only feel it on the head. Ah, yes, great. So this is great, exactly. So you say, so because you feel it on the head, but you don't feel it on the feet, doesn't that mean there must be a boundary? And the answer is no. The thing to see about it is, and you say like somatic mapping, yeah, that's the overlap of somatics and self-inquiry, is that they are both about getting clearer on the direct experience. They both are shifting the mode of functioning of the nervous system to the mode of presence or direct perception. So there's a symbolic mode of the nervous system. The symbolic mode is what most people are, it's the only thing they know. It's the only thing they know. Don't know how to do anything other than symbolic mode, which is fine, except that it's very limiting. So you can start to see how there's a perception that there's a quality to the experience that has a location. And you say, it seems like there's different qualities in different locations, and therefore there must be a boundary. Yes. So what I'm pointing to, and this is it's challenging just because it's so I want to be clear about this. Actually, this is a good point. You can't do both. Well, so I want to say you can't do both. Let me put it this way. Don't try to do both modes of the nervous system at the same time. Just allow for a switch. So most of us are so in the habit of trying to arrive at what we conceive of as satisfying answers in thought. And there are severe limitations to that. Because when you do that, all you can possibly do is rearrange the past. You can't actually discover something new that way, because all you're referring to is what you think you already know. So you can rearrange that, but it's not actually going to be new. So if you want something truly new, you have to be willing to, as I say, go to a lower level. You have to be willing to go to a lower level. And when you go to a lower level, you're switching the mode of the function to that of presence. So in this mode of presence or direct perception, you're just looking. You're not trying to fit anything into any previous ideas. You're just looking. You're just truthfully observing what you find. So you're reporting, okay, when I'm looking directly, it seems like there's a sensation up near the head, where what I associate with the head, that has these qualities of heaviness and density and solidity. And then it also seems when I become aware of what I think of as my feet, that the qualities of the sensation are different. Great. That seems like pretty good observation. It's in the right direction. I mean, there's obviously still some story there because you're still referring to the symbols of head and feet, up and down. But that's fine. That's part of the process. But it's subtler. It's in the right direction for sure. It's a good direction. And then what happens is, you see, you directly observe, but then you switch right back to, okay, but then there must be a boundary. Well, why? Why must there be a boundary? Have you found the boundary? That's what I'm saying. Find the boundary. So just stay with one. Just stay with one. You say, okay, there's the heaviness. Does the label have the boundary head and feet? I'm not sure what that question means. But you just notice, just stay with one of what I mean, you perceive that there are multiple sensations. So just stay with one for a moment and explore that to see if you can find the boundaries of that. So if you say, okay, where I conceive of my head being, there's a quality of heaviness, then just stay with that and directly explore that to see how far to the right does that go. Can you find a boundary to the right? Can you find a boundary to the left? Can you find a boundary up? Can you find a boundary down? So you're just staying with the direct perception of that and just exploring in these various dimensions, which are somewhat false, but nonetheless, it's a useful way to explore. So you're just looking, can I find the boundary of it? Not a conceptual boundary, but the real thing. Yes, it's like a ghost, hard to define the boundary. I would say impossible to define the boundary, but you have to explore this for yourself and just see. You're seeing. That's much clearer. That's good. It is very much like a ghost. Yeah, it's slippery because it's like a ghost. But this is what I'm pointing to. You see, is that we've been fighting with ghosts. So we wake up in a mood, or a mood strikes us, and then we fight with it. But what are we fighting with? We're fighting with the ghost. The ghost is uh, uh, the ghost is it's like a, I don't know what you call that. It's it's an illusion. It's an illusion that's generated by this phenomenon of that frequency of mind. And we're fighting with it, but there's nothing there. It has no substance. It has no boundaries. It has nothing. And so, but the challenge is that we are so accustomed to mistaking that for primary reality that when we actually take a look, the tendency, when we look in direct experience, the tendency is then to still be referring back to our conditioned mind to see if what it is that we're directly perceiving matches or somehow can be fit into what's in conditioned mind. And then there's a dissonance because wait a second, but it's like a ghost. It's slippery. It doesn't make any sense. Where is it? I can't find it, but I know it must be there. And that's why I'm saying just stay with the direct experience for a little while. Because what will happen is you'll start to realize that actually the direct perception is much more. Why does it take a while? Okay, great. It takes a while. I actually don't know the answer to the question why. All I can tell you is it does. I mean, I could speculate as to why. Um, it is and I think I've mentioned this before here. If not, then I haven't. But I'll mention it now, which is that in the again, I haven't um, funded a bunch of research into this, and I'll try to get to that question too. But I haven't funded a bunch of research into this to have better data specific to this phenomenon. But I think there are related phenomena that do have research that indicate that it just takes time. And so, for example, with I think that this is a similar phenomenon to that of memory consolidation. Memory consolidation is a phenomenon that's well known in memory research, and it's just that uh, because here's the thing: you don't remember everything. Isn't that true? I mean, clearly you don't remember everything. You just can't. Um, you remember only what you remember, and why do you remember what you remember? And so this is a thing that people who are interested in memory are curious about, and when they've researched it, they've realized, well, it's possible to experimentally set up conditions that will either increase the likelihood or decrease the likelihood of somebody remembering something. And basically, I'm not an expert on this, but I think basically, simple way of describing it is that if you can distract somebody within during a certain window of time following whatever it is that you want a person to remember or not remember, if you can distract them during that time, the likelihood of them remembering is very small. So there's this window of time that a process that they call memory consolidation occurs. And exactly how that works, I don't know, but it is a process it's a phenomenon that can be observed. I mean, it can be observed indirectly. It could probably be observed directly if you had the right instruments to perceive it. I would say it's probably not just repetition. It literally, I believe, and I think there's evidence. I mean, for memory consolidation, at least, I think there's pretty good evidence that it actually um, the let's say the data, the information is is actually shifts and stored somewhere else, stored somewhere in the body, so that it can be recalled. And I think part of the mechanism of that is some of the things that we've just been exploring, which is that there, in order for something to seem real, because real is an interesting thing too. What is real? How do you know something's real versus not real? Which we won't get into too much right now, but it is a very interesting question. But in order for something to be, yeah, maybe next week, but in order for something to be real to you, in order for you to perceive that it's real, it must have certain qualities to it. And what produces those qualities? And some of what produces those qualities is that it is it has elements that we've talked about that all kind of come together. They kind of get glued together. So thought, reference to the past, sensation. These have to come together in order to produce a sense of reality as you understand it. Right? Because if you had only a thought, think about this, okay? If you had only a thought, I'm a purple alien, that's not real. Now, if you had a thought, I'm a purple alien, and then you had a memory of having been purple and lived on another planet, you'd say, well, that's weird, but that seems a little more real. Not quite real, though. But if you have the thought and the memory and sensations, which in your conditioning all come together to produce a sense of, yes, that's real, then that's real for you. Is it technically conceptual? It's energetic, actually. So these things, these components are required, and we can reverse engineer that. That's what I'm pointing at with all this. I know I wish I was, if I had like lecture notes and slides and everything, these would be much more coherent, but I hope that this is somewhat clear. So we can reverse engineer when we understand, when we observe what's actually happening in our experience. We can start to see, well, if I'm fighting with my moods, why am I doing that? I mean, I'm clearly not going to fight. If I have the thought, I'm a purple alien, am I going to go to war with that? No. Why would I? I don't believe it. It's not real. But if I believe that it is real, that I am in a bad mood and that's going to ruin my day and possibly my life, then I'm much more likely to go to war with that, because it seems real. It seems like there's something real that's on the line. So then I can look to see what are the things. First of all, I'm unhappy about this. I don't like this. This has been going on every day for all of these years. I'm tired of it. I don't want to do this anymore. This is ridiculous. I'm just done. Okay, you have to draw a line and say no more. And then you have to actually start to look, and you can see what are the components. Well, the components are, there's a thought, there's a reference to the past, there's sensation, and these are all linked. You see, they're all linked. These three things are all linked. Independently, they don't lend a sense of reality. When they're linked, then there's a sense of reality to it. So if you're unhappy, then know that these three things are happening, and it's a phenomenon that you can actually observe, and you can begin to do something differently by slowing down. So you slow down by actually looking and looking in your direct experience, so that you can start to see that these things are happening, and they are not in fact all the same thing. Oh, by the way, let me say, um, I also think that the research into what they call memory reconsolidation is very relevant. So for a long time, memory researchers said, well, we've identified that there's a phenomenon called memory consolidation. We know that experimentally we're able to distract people at the right times and in the right ways, and it causes them not to consolidate the memory, and so therefore they forget. Then memory researchers discovered, oh, actually, same thing happens when a memory is recalled. So a memory is stored somewhere in the body, and it links I mean, it might link other things, but these are the three things I'm thinking of at the moment. Okay, the sensation, the reference to the past, and the thought. Links them together, stores them somewhere in the body biochemically, energetically, electrically, however it does. And then, but we also all know in our actual experience, I mean, this isn't some weird thing. We all know that we have the experience of memory recall, right? If I say, where were you yesterday? You recall. And notice, how do you recall? How do you know that that's true versus something that you're making up? It's because it's a thought, a reference to the past, and a sensation that come together to give you a sense of reality. Now, what memory researchers did is they found out, and it took them a while before, I mean, not that long, but decades before they found out, oh, maybe there's something that happens similar on recall. And so they started to test that, and lo and behold, sure enough, same thing. After a memory is recalled, there's a window in which it can be, well, it is either going to be reconsolidated or not. Now, if it's not reconsolidated, then what happens? It loses its sense of reality. So this is like a breakthrough in PTSD research, because then they realized, oh, so that's basically, I mean, just like the researchers have shown, that's basically what's going on in PTSD, is that something gets recalled over and over and over, and then reinstalled, reconsolidated over and over and over and over. That's all that's happening. And they found out all we have to do is interrupt the reconsolidation, and that cycle ceases. So I'm convinced it's virtually the same thing, if not the same thing, or it's a very, very similar phenomenon, because it follows the same pattern, that we can see that when there is a mood, that it is being recalled, something has triggered it, right? Because if you say, oh, I'm in a bad mood, how do you know you're in a bad mood? You can only know you're in a bad mood because you're referring to the past, and because you're looking to a thought. And you can only believe that that's real because there's a sensation that's linked to this that lends a sense of reality to it. Now, most of us just stay fighting with that. And when we fight with that, it stays locked in the same frequency, which means reconsolidated every time. And we wonder, why is my life like Groundhog Day? Why do I keep doing the same thing? because you're locked into the same frequency, because you keep battling at this level. So to slow down, we just have to observe. So first of all, when you notice that you're reacting, just notice that you're reacting. Like the kid, like me, when I was however old, with my head stuck between the railings, crying, pulling. So just notice you're reacting. Notice that. And notice how, so to slow down, we're just observing the phenomenon that's playing out as it's playing out. We're really curious about it. What is this? Don't we want to know? So there's something in the programming that is reactive. And that reactivity is what, unchecked, maintains this conditioning. So we want to be really curious about the reactivity, slow it down and observe. So first of all, am I actually sincerely, really, truly in as bad of a situation in this moment right now as I'm acting like? It's a good question, because you'll find every time the answer is no. It's not that bad. I'm panicking like it's the end of the world, but in fact, I've got a little bit, like a little bit of breathing room here. Maybe my house is being foreclosed on. Maybe the sheriff is coming to kick me out tomorrow. Maybe the sheriff's here. Maybe the sheriff's going to escort me off the property right now. But whatever I'm imagining it's not nearly as bad as the reality. I've got my head stuck in the railing. Okay, that sucks. But is it nearly as bad as I'm behaving? No. So then instantly, it's like everything is expanded. Time has expanded. I've got so much more time now, all of a sudden. I mean, just a split second ago, it was the end of the world. And now suddenly it's not the end of the world. Time has expanded dramatically, infinitely so. Now I can just start to observe, well, what's actually happening? Okay, I stuck my head through the railing. Now my head seems to be stuck. Okay, that's a good starting point. Just sort of evaluate, just take a look, what's actually happening. And if we just observe in this way, and we're just quietly observing our actual direct experience, we just start to notice that all of the misery is self-generated. All of the, we made one we made one questionable decision. One questionable decision, right? It's like everything was fine until you stuck your head through the railing. One questionable decision, and then suddenly seems like it's the end of the world. And the more you struggle, the worse it gets. So when you really are observant, you see, wait a second. All that happened was I stuck my head through the railing. Anything that I do reacting to this is only going to make this worse. So choose not to react. You don't need to react in order to take clear, efficient, useful action. But what you do need is to actually have clarity, right? If you want to have clear action, You need to have clarity on what that action is. If you don't have clarity on what that action is, you will not be, almost guaranteed, you won't be doing that. You'll be doing something else, which will not be helpful. So slowing down. Yeah, so it says, feels like a restraint to pause. And I'm really happy that you mentioned that, because there's a very important distinction between restraint and slowing down, or inhibition. So inhibition is really what I'm advocating. Inhibition is to notice, you're noticing, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, so I'll mention it again. So my observation is that there's two directions of intention. You can intend to action, or you can intend to inhibit action. And they are sort of opposite functions. And the way that most of us are conditioned to try and stop an action is by using more intention to act in the opposite way. So I'm pushing this way, and I say, oh, that's unpleasant, I don't want that to happen. Okay, here's what I'll do. I'll push this way. So now what have I done? I'm restraining this fist with the other fist, but I'm using now twice as much effort. Maybe even more, because maybe what happens is I'm pushing with this one, and then I try to restrain it with this one. And then when the right is restraining the left, and the left tries harder, and then the right has to try harder, and then the left has to try harder, and the right has to try harder, and pretty soon I'm giving myself a heart attack. So what I'm proposing is that there's what's called inhibition, which is I'm doing this, and I realize, as it's already started, wait a second, I don't want to do that. So I become aware of how I'm doing this, and then I reverse that. I cease to do that. So this is different than restraint, because restraint uses more effort. Inhibition uses less. Inhibition is to cease the unnecessary or undesirable use of effort. And it is a specific function that is capable, that the human nervous system is capable of. You can experience it. I describe it often as a softening, because the experience of it is often softening. So we want to become aware of what we're doing, and then we want to inhibit that. The more that we become aware of the habits, of the reactive habits, and we learn to inhibit or soften those, the clearer we get on what action we actually want to take. And as an added benefit, we're then able to take that action clearly, because we're not being restrained by other effort that we're making that opposes that. See, if I'm habitually doing this, and I actually want to do this, then what am I going to do? You see, if I don't first learn about this and learn how to inhibit this, then I'm unable to do what I intend to do. So then I first want to slow down, and I want to observe what is actually happening. What's my actual experience? And I start to realize, where is the strain? Where is the discomfort? Where is the effort happening? And eventually I become aware of, oh, this. Now, first, I'm not going to know what to do about that, because all of my habit is restraint. So I have to just keep slowing down. if I keep slowing down, here's what I'm going to notice is that my whole life, I'm using this as a metaphor, my left fist. Okay, but my whole life, I've been doing this. But I was unaware of it because I was subconsciously trying to work around it. And all of those habits of working around it are so conditioned that they happen without any thought or any awareness. They're just automatic. They just happen until I slow down. When I slow down, I start to notice all of the compulsions. What are my compulsions here? So I notice, wow, this is really uncomfortable. I really have this overwhelming urge to do that little thing that I do to adjust, to try and get more comfortable, or to give my sense of self that I'm accomplishing something, or give myself a sense that I'm going to win, or give myself a sense that it's going to be okay. Whatever it is that I do, I've got a million strategies. You'll just start to notice these things in yourself. The little, like, you do things with your eyes. You dart your eyes in certain ways. You touch your face in certain ways. You swallow at certain times and in certain ways. You have certain thoughts that you give attention to at certain times. All of these are just compulsions that are designed to help you avoid being aware of this. But when you slow down and you don't indulge any of those habits and you soften those habits, you start to become aware of this. And you start to realize, wow, I've been making an awful lot of effort just trying to avoid this. And I didn't even know what this was. So now I can become aware of what it is. If I'm not trying to do any of the things that I've habitually done, trying to fix this, trying to fight with it, trying to do whatever it is I think I'm doing, I actually just start to become aware of it. And it's going to get my attention because this is the biggest thing going. You know, everything else, once everything else, all of my other little things kind of settle down and I'm not indulging those habits, pretty soon it's just, this is front and center. It's like, wow, this is really uncomfortable. But what is it? So I have to become curious about it. And the sensation directs the curiosity. All I have to do is just follow the sensation. And I start to notice things about the sensation that I had never realized before. And maybe I start to realize, wow, I've been doing this. I've been doing this. I didn't realize I was doing it, but I've been doing this. And you start to realize, oh, this is nicer if I don't, if I just like this. Oh, that's better. Just a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. You just start to notice, oh, oh. And then after it gets to a certain point, you just realize, wow, I don't have to do that anymore. And then 5 minutes later, you realize you're doing this again. But then, you know, just because once you see it, then you see what's actually happening. Because until you see it, this, which I'm using as a metaphor, but it's almost in some ways literal. I mean, not literally a fist, but literally it's some posture that we hold. Until we realize what it actually is, we think it's something else. We think it's a bad mood. We think it's that I just never get a fair break in life. I just am not smart enough. I'm just not good looking enough. People don't like me. I guess I'll just never be healthy. That's just the way life is. Nobody likes me. You know, whatever, with these, like, all these things, all these little excuses and stories that we've just believed and fought with. Isn't that odd? You know, it's like, how you think, oh, I'm no good. Nobody could love me. There's something wrong with me. And then you get all in a fight over that. Well, I'll show them. I'll get a fancy degree and I'll make lots of money. And then people will respect me. And then people won't think badly of me. So you spend your whole life fighting with these things. And what was it all along? When you see what that is and you realize that you've been doing it and you realize you don't have to do it, then she's like, oh, I'm free. And then when this reasserts itself, like it sometimes does, and the mind will sometimes still say, oh, I'm in a bad mood, I'm unlovable. Then you just feel, wait a second, hold on. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh. Because you know what it is. Yeah, so you say you're left with unworthiness when you let go. Yes. And what I'm saying is that that what you're calling unworthiness is a way in which you're still gripping. Yeah, it's unnecessary effort. So let's see. Oh, that was the longest one yet. And there's still some questions I didn't even get to. Let me see. There was one at least that I said I was going to respond to. Oh yeah, I think. I feel as if I forget how to slow down, how to go where you suggest rather than to the mic. So the I imagine that different people have different tricks. I actually have no idea what anybody else's experience is, so I can't know for sure. But I think that we're all similar enough that if I share my tricks with you, that they will at least get you pointed in the right direction. So let me just see what I can say about that. So, okay, so when you find that you're worked up and you know, well, you think you have some idea that letting go would be helpful, but you don't know how to do that, or whatever you want to call it, softening, shifting, it doesn't matter what you call it, but you have accessing, whatever you want to call it, you have an idea about that, but you can see, then you say, oh, but I don't know how to do that right now. So you can see that that's the same thing that we've been talking about, which is that there's a thought, there's a reference to the past, and there's a sensation, which combine to give a sense of reality to that story. So you can just see how there's some effort that you have to make to maintain a focus on that as in a particular way. So if you don't maintain, I mean, there's an interesting thing about focus. Okay. So for example, you're looking at a screen now. Notice what happens if you look through the screen. So you can just look through the screen, like you're just looking however far, it doesn't matter, through the screen. And notice that you can do that. And when you do that, what you're seeing changes, doesn't it? And notice that your eyes actually, depending on where you've got the screen, but chance almost for sure, your eyes are not actually most at rest when you're focused on the screen. But you notice that if you're looking through the screen and there's something that you think is happening on the screen, there's a strong compulsion to focus on the screen again. So it's not that your eyes want to focus on the screen. Your eyes don't want to focus on the screen. Your eyes would be more relaxed if you were not focusing on the screen. there's just a habit that you have of focusing on the screen. So the way in which you focus requires effort, and it shapes what you perceive. So when you notice that you're feeling stuck, you can just notice how you're focusing. There's whether we're talking about the focusing of the eyes, which may literally be, I haven't observed that closely enough, but that may literally be always true. But certainly you can tune into the somatic experience and just notice where you're making the unnecessary effort. You can just feel it. There's some little strain that's not fully, yeah, it's usually the forehead. I mean, I say you, I normally experience it in the forehead. I actually heard a talk given by Iyengar, the yogi, in which he actually described that phenomenon, which when I heard that, I thought, oh, that's interesting, because that's exactly what I have noticed. And apparently it's a thing known to yogis. But it's, that if your eyes are relaxed in the sockets, just as if the muscles around that move the eyes are completely relaxed, you can't think. So you'll just notice there's an unnecessary effort. You can feel the strain of it, and then you can just choose to be curious about that, and you can inhibit that. So again, it's softening. And I don't know presently how to describe that more accurately. I think that that's a very clear description. I'm pretty sure it's a very clear description. If that's not a clear description and you need more clarification, you can let me know. And the question about, is it helpful to move the eye a little bit? I would say, in my experience, yes. And I actually, yes, I would say yes. There's an interesting thing, which is that your eyes are, you can actually, okay, you can perceive your eyes as moving as you would your fingers. Okay, so notice that you can move your fingers and you have a perception of the fingers moving. You can move the eyes and have the same perception of the eyes moving. Most people, I don't think, are aware of their eyes in that way. Right? Isn't that true? I think most people have a sense of their eyes. They're actually not really aware of their eyes. The eyes are just like, the eyes are what they use to look. So the eyes, they tend to focus the eyes on things, on objects. So if you try it, you can try it as an experiment. You can try to move your eyes from left to right, and back and forth a few times, and see how smoothly you're able to do that. And if you're able to do that without looking at things, yeah, it feels really jagged. Yeah, that's usually true. Almost everybody has a lot of jumpiness in the eye movements. People hold a lot of strain chronically in their eyes, and they're not aware of it. And I'm fairly convinced that it has a very, very, very significant impact on our experience. So, so releasing that tension, that chronic strain in the eyes can have a significant impact on quality of life. And I don't think I can give you all the instructions for that. If you guys remind me next week, I can talk more about that, and I can guide you through how to explore that. It's on the one hand, it's quite simple. On the other hand, there's some nuances to it that you want to be aware of in order to have it work well. And let me just see what there was another, whoops, another question. Yeah, I think that did I address all of that, or was there more? You can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Looking at the time, and I actually have more in my question that okay, yeah. So you can let me know off, through email. And by the way, sorry I haven't gotten back to you. I email me again and let's find a time. Okay, so sorry that I didn't leave time for more questions today, but I have something scheduled in a short time, and so yeah, it's been plenty. That's a polite way of saying it. All right, so thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being here, and I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.